It's Tuesday, which means it's time for another Commander deck profile, and today we're looking at Storm, Force of Nature. This wildly popular Commander already out of Marble's Secret Lair has a lot of people talking and has an insane price tag right now of almost $80 for the non-foil version, so let's get into the video. Alright everybody, thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys taking the time to watch these videos. Be sure to hit that like button if you do enjoy, and then click the subscribe button to be subscribed to the channel. Of course, you can click that bell notification if you want to be notified when new videos are posted. Now, I have been quiet for a few days, working on a few things, and during that time, the Marble Secret Lair did drop last week. It was absolutely wild. It sold out very quickly, but not only that, there was exploits to the system, which was not good to see, where people were able to skip queues and lines and whatnot. And as a result, it does look like the kind of expected buyout price spike for these happened, and that's super unfortunate, obviously. So I'm hoping that they stay true to their word about making these cards mechanically accessible in another product. Even if they won't be universes within, at least there'll still be someone who can get them. Storm is easily, I think, the most popular one right now. As of the time I'm making this video, the non-foil one on TCG Player was around 80 bucks, and the foil was even more. And the Secret Lair itself, sealed, is going for even higher. So really kind of a sad thing to see. But if you were one of the people who were lucky enough to get your hands on this, or are playing with a group that would be okay with you proxying your commander in the short term, then maybe this video will be for you. Because while Storm is, very expensive right now and very popular, it's also a very good and cool commander to play. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. I am trying a new layout here, if you guys can tell. That way people can actually see a better, outline of the cards. So I went ahead and did some testing with the stream based on recommendation from a couple of people who commented on a previous video. So let me know if you like that layout or not. I know it's not perfect, but we'll work with it as we go. Now, enough talking from me. We're going to look at Storm, Force of Nature. It is 1 green, blue, red, legendary creature, mutant, hero with flying and vigilance. And its ability says whenever Storm deals combat damage to a player, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn has Storm. Obviously, kind of fits thematically there, but this is a really fun combination of colors for a Storm deck, and ultimately what we're trying to do here is maximize two things: our ability to play instants and sorceries cheaper and get extra value off of them, and then of course make sure that our commander can deal damage and be protected so that we can of course maximize her ability to copy those spells. With that in mind, we're going to look at the creatures first, and there are 17 creatures in here currently. I think the majority of builds I looked at before putting together my own were playing, I didn't see any playing over 20 creatures, so I think a lower creature count is definitely going to be kind of standard for this, regardless of what direction you choose to take the deck in, but I think it's important to have at least, something there to be able to make your plays, I guess, worthwhile, but also just have some level of board presence. So we've got Archmage Emeritus. This is just whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, draw a card. He's a pretty easy include. Archmage of Runes, or Archmage of Runes, is a brand new from Foundations. This is 3 and 2 blue. Instant and sorceries cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, draw a card. Obviously, cards like this are maximizing both our hand advantage and then making it easier to cast some of our instant sorceries. Not really doing anything wild, but they're pretty good cards, and they're cheap enough to play that it's worth it to have them. We've got Birds of Paradise. You guys know what that does. Delighted Halfling as well. A couple of mana dorks in here just to get things moving. Bloom Tender is similarly, we got a good variety of colors here, so I think, this is a decent card that can certainly help you to ramp early game. Dualcaster Mage is one I kind of like a lot. I went back and forth on it, but ultimately it does work well with what we're looking to do, and it doesn't cost too much. Being able to copy an instant or sorcery, perhaps one you're already copying with Storm, and then get a bunch of, copy resolutions of the instant sorceries you're casting, just good enough for that low to the ground. Elvish Spirit Guide and Simian Spirit Guide are both just to give us the ability to get a little bit ahead if we need to, just to maybe be able to cast something we otherwise wouldn't. Pretty good cards here, and when you're talking about a deck that is focusing not so much on creatures but on everything else, I think they're pretty solid inclusions. Eternal Witness is just a great card in general. I typically look to this in most green decks, but I mean, here we're getting any card back from the graveyard, so there's no reason not to use it. Goblin Electromancer, just another way to reduce the instants and sorceries that we play. Same deal with Stormcatch Mentor and Thunderclap Drake. Both of them are here to do that. They obviously have some other additional effects. Thunderclap Drake has some really interesting interactions where when you cast an instant or sorcery, you can copy it for each time you've cast your commander. So perhaps if you swing with Storm and you've cast it, you know, at least once, you copy it. There's some cool stuff there going on, but primarily what we're looking for is the ability to reduce the costs. Same with Raul Monsoon Mage. This is obviously a really strong card that can do a good bit of things and can also transform itself. And it's just pretty much an auto-include if you're playing red in a Storm-type deck. Slickshot Show-Off might be a little bit unorthodox, but I think this card's really good. I don't like the idea of not having anything to put on the board, so like this can do a good bit of damage and at least kind of get itself up to hits for things while you're waiting for your combos to resolve. I definitely understand if people were to be like, nah, I don't like this, but I think it fits in here well enough. And then we've got Spellseeker, which just lets you search an instant or sorcery. So if you know you can copy stuff, you get something you need that's going to let you do a lot of damage. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And lastly, Storm Splitter, just a decent card from Bloomborough. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you create a token copy of Storm Splitter. Obviously, if you're copying or casting a bunch, you can ping with all of those. They do exile at the beginning of the next end step, but you could certainly use it as blockers too if you do it during your opponent's turn. So there's a good bit of things to work with there. So that's it for the creature lineup. We're going to move on to sorceries. So Blasphemous Act, just obviously pretty good card in general. It's a nice board wipe. Bolt Wave, if you're unfamiliar, is a brand new card from Foundations. It just says deal 3 damage to each opponent. So, I mean, on its own, it's pretty strong. If you play this and you can copy it multiple times, you're looking at doing a lot of damage fairly quickly. And, you know, in a deck like this where we can not only get our instant sorceries back, but we can copy them sometimes, that's not incredibly hard to pull off. We've got Enter the Enigma, which is in here mostly for the fact that it can make Storm unblockable, so you know she's going to hit, you get to copy your next spell, but the draw is nice too. Obviously, it replaces itself. A couple of ramp cards like Farseek and 3 Visits. These are pretty standard includes in things that play green. I also have Nature's Lore in here. I just think these are the best 3, but you can obviously pick and choose as you like. Finale of Devastation is a crazy card, and while we don't play a lot of creatures here, the fact that you can copy this if you have a lot of mana is what I think makes it really interesting. But at the very least, being able to play this and have its cost reduced by a lot of things means you can get something out of the deck like Raul or even, you know, one of your Archmages or something to that effect. It's just pretty good because of how cheap it is and the fact that we can replicate its effects easily. Gamble is the same thing, you know, search for a card. If we can search for 2 cards, that's great. Gitaxian Probe is another one that's just pretty good for drawing and for having instants and sorceries to cast. Same with Ponder and Preordain. They're all just very similar variants of the same card. Green Sun Zenith, same deal here. This cost does get reduced, so buy things you have out. So if you're playing it, copying it, you pull some other creatures, you thin the deck, you get access to other stuff, you know, pretty basic stuff. Jessica's Will, just an insanely good card, and this does have that Storm's Will variant from the Secret Lair for those who were, you know, fortunate enough to get it. Does a good bit for you. Lorien Revealed, draw power, as well as being able to get an island in a pinch. It's going to cost a lot less than 5 in most cases, so it does kind of have that benefit. And then we've got Maddening Cacophony, which is just kind of a funny inclusion, but if you think about its application with Storm, if it's kicked, each opponent mills half their library rounded up. So when you're copying it, they're basically going to mill, you know, twice, and they're going to mill a ton of cards. And that's, you know, this can be pretty devastating, especially, you know, if you get it at the right time. I just think it's a card that is cheap enough to include and give you an alternate way to do some things if you find yourself in a bit of a pickle. Overmaster, pretty good too. Just draw a card, but it makes it so your next instant or sorcery can't be countered. Not bad. We've got Seagate Restoration. This is really good. Expensive, unfortunately, but draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand +1, then you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. It is a little costly, but everything's bringing down the cost of your instant sorceries. Slip Through Space is the same as Enter the Enigma. Solve the Equation searches any instant or sorcery that you need, and then Windfall, it's a wheel effect, basically, that's a bit more budget friendly, so we like that a lot in here. For the instants, we've got Psych Rift. Just, I mean, this card's crazy. I don't need to tell you guys about that one. Dramatic Reversal is pretty good. Untap all non-land permanents you control, and it can basically be cast for 1 blue most of the time, which is solid. Expedite, pretty good. Just give Storm haste, draw a card, get some extra resources. Fierce Guardianship is just that and Negate, both kind of here just for, you know that they work. I like Negate better than Counterspell in here just because you can reduce its cost to cost 1 blue. Obviously, there are some other ones you can play like Mana Drain and whatnot, but I was trying to think of budget to an extent when putting this together because it does get very pricey very quickly, and I can't, like, there's just not a lot of ways to make a budget-friendly version of this deck, especially when the commander costs as much as it does. Growth Spiral, pretty good. Draw a card, put a land out. Lightning Bolt, another card you can replicate, do some funny stuff with. Same with Manamorphose. If you copy it, you know, you're casting it for next to nothing. You're getting some mana fixing. Mystical Tutor, pretty good. You know, these are all just cards you really want to be able to copy. Seething Song, Pyretic Ritual, Negate is pretty good there. Shadow Rift is the same deal. It gives it shadow, so it basically can't be blocked. Just another way to ensure that Storm's going to hit. Snap is also pretty good. Getting rid of an opponent's creature for 1 mana and then untapping your lands is solid, especially because in most cases it's going to cost less, so you can actually play more cards with it. And then Worldly Tutor, just again, you still do play creatures in here. There are certainly some things that wouldn't be bad to search. Moving on to artifacts, we've got Arcane Signet, I've got Rule Signet, I've got Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots, basically, you know, I'm pretty auto include there. Mithril Coat, I like. It basically gives a creature indestructible and has flash, so your Storm, you can protect it. Silver Shroud costume, similarly, when it enters, it attaches. Creature gets Shroud till end of turn, but it also can't be blocked, so we're ensuring that Storm hits so that we can kind of do some additional combat damage. Soul Ring and the One Ring, you know, as long as we have access to it, we might as well utilize it, right? But obviously, if it's too pricey, you can certainly cut it for something else. And then we've got enchantments. We have Case of the Ransacked Lab. I like this a lot. It's another thing that reduced the cost of the instant sorceries. And then you can solve it, quote unquote, by casting 4 or more instant or sorceries in a turn. And if it is solved, when it gains the ability, this is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. We've got Heuristic Study. I know it's annoying, but it's good. We've got Underworld Breach, another really solid way to basically you play it, and then you can play a bunch of your non-land cards. You recast all your instant stuff from the grave. So there's a lot of fun interaction there. And then Wild Growth is just pretty good for ramp. Land-wise, it's pretty good. I didn't put Ancient Tomb in here just because I was trying to, again, be considerate of people's budget to an extent, which is just crazy to say for a deck that's probably going to be about over $900 just for the framework of what's here. But yeah, I mean, we've got as many fetches as we can play. We've got the Shock lands, we've got the Pain lands. I really like obviously the Surveil lands from Karlov because they're fetchable, and then a few basics too because we are playing stuff that's going to give us access to that. So I mean, there's only so much you can do. I mean, this is really sort of a first draft for me. I will say that looking at some other people's builds and stuff, my biggest concern is almost like not having enough of a win condition if you can't deal significant amounts of damage. So there might be some consideration to be had to like buff up some of play a few more instant sorceries that are maybe more costly, but that we know we can reduce so that you're able to deal like a lot of damage. So as always with these, I typically encourage you guys to just look at it as like a framework versus like the definitive way to build the deck, because there are definitely upgrades that can be made for sure. And it's tricky, especially when like, you know, a deck is new, just to try to get a functional build together that you can base off of. So I would say there's definitely things you could cut. If you don't like the Finale and the Green Sun Zenith, those are certainly cards you could take out and change the approach. And then, you know, maybe in a future draft, as I play with it more, what I'll do is lean towards getting some extra damage burning spells in there, simply so that we have an extra way to like put pressure on the opponent if for some reason we can't make Storm as strong as we'd like. That being said, this is the video. Let me know what you guys think, and also let me know if you were able to get one of these. So hopefully, you know, people that wanted to were. I know some people in my play group were, but we had to go through a lot of hoops to get it. And yeah, so it's just kind of unfortunate the way it was handled, and I definitely sympathize with anyone who had to deal with that. But that's going to do it for this video. I'll catch you next time. Peace.